First of all, I'm really grateful for inviting me because it's extremely important to share our views, to express our position of Ukraine and my position as a member of parliament, and to communicate with the people of Macedonia. It's extremely important. And of course, I'm very grateful to your support. We'll talk about this later. But as for your question, we expected the full-scale invasion to come, but it came unexpectedly. It came unexpectedly to us. My family, to my colleagues, and to the whole country, the first weeks of the full-scale invasion have been extremely difficult. Later, we found out that Putin was planning to take over Kiev, to occupy Kiev within 3 days. And first days were extremely difficult. But at the same time, I decided to stay with my family, with my whole family. I didn't evacuate even my small children. We stayed in Kiev. It was important for us to stay in Kiev to show that representatives of power, legislators, stay with us. In that moment, with my colleagues, members of parliament, we needed to show to the whole world that we're alive, that we're continuing to work, that Verkhovna Rada, the parliament, continues to work. And we started from the very moment, from the first hours. For example, when we found out, I was woken up by explosions in my apartment, and I lived like within 1 hour walk on foot from the House of Parliament. It took me 40 minutes to come to my workplace, to the committee. Within first hours, we held the first plenary meeting and adopted all necessary laws. For example, martial law. We introduced martial law. I was pleased to see that most of my colleagues were on the spot, were in Kiev. Our Committee of Foreign Affairs, also started to work in a very intensive manner from the first minutes of the invasion. We held our meeting. We started to work on the appeals, on the resolutions of the parliament on behalf of Ukrainian people. We started to appeal to the whole world, to our allies, to our friends, asking them to help us, to introduce sanctions against the aggressor, to provide us with weaponry, and to support us diplomatically and politically. At the same time, we also added a new, I call it informative function, which means that there were lots of calls from journalists all over the world. We were given lots of interviews, mostly online, by phone, to different countries, to European countries, to Japan, to New Zealand, to Australia. And we were trying to keep the whole world informed of what's going on and we were doing this work. We were only thinking, what next? What steps should be taken next? What we should do next?
Of course, that it is extremely important to keep the international attention to this brutal aggression that is conducted against Ukraine and Ukrainian civilians. However, the Ukrainian legislators and the government and the president himself are making a lot of efforts to push Ukraine forward towards the European Union integration as well as to the NATO membership. Do you have an assessment of the level of political unity in Ukraine, in the country, in regards to the Euro-Atlantic integration of your country? How was it in the past? Do you have more unity now in Ukraine in regards to the wish of the people to become part of the European Union and NATO membership? And maybe make a comparison to some past times.
Well, the truth is that Ukrainian people have always been pro-European. we always considered ourselves to be integral, organic part of European family. And our goal has always been towards becoming a member of the European Union. Right now, the support among Ukrainian people, the support of joining NATO and joining the European Union is tremendously high. According to estimates, it's more than 80%. According to some assessments, it's more than 90% in favor of joining NATO and the European Union. It's unprecedented, I would say. Of course, the war changed the situation when it comes to popular support. It made it much higher. But the truth is that even before the war, and by the beginning of war, I mean the year 2014, even before that, majority of population in Ukraine have been in favor of joining the European Union and NATO. But now this support is just unprecedented. And this goal to join the European Union, we call it Euro-Atlantic integration and European integration. This goal is enshrined in our constitution, which is also a sign of tremendous support of Euro integration processes.
So what are the prospects? Maybe do you have some sort of a time frame on when it will be possible for Ukraine to enter the negotiations and become European Union member as well as the NATO member? We've seen the statement recently from Mr. Stoltenberg, who said that it is up to Kyiv and to Ukrainian people to decide if they want to become part of NATO and not of Moscow, as the Russian Federation dictator Putin is promoting in the last several decades. So what are the prospects? What is the timeline? Do you have at least some estimates about that?
Yes, so regarding European Union and NATO membership, first of all, we expect to start negotiations with the European Union regarding our accession this year, maybe by the end of this year. Before that, the European Commission has offered 7 requirements or 7 recommendations what Ukraine should do to start negotiations. We as members of parliament, we have accomplished what was expected from us. We have adopted the necessary legislation. And the Venice Commission has expressed some other recommendations regarding our performance. So now we are in the process of consultations with the Venice Commission, which is normal. But the truth is that we have already done the major part of our work, our home assignment. And we are hopeful that we will start negotiations by the end of this year. And I always emphasize when I'm talking to my Western colleagues that our membership in the EU, it's not only a matter of prestige or economic development, it's also a matter of our security. Because by being a member of the European Union, we will have more support, more solidarity of other members of the European Union. And I'm sure that it will have deterrent effect for Russia. Because Putin, he as a dictator, he is afraid of solidarity between democratic European states. A good example is Finland. Finland was not a NATO member, but Putin didn't risk to invade Finland. NATO membership, we understand that the only guarantee of our security is NATO membership, to be a full-fledged member state of NATO. And it's not only guarantee of Ukraine's security, it's also guarantee of security and peace in Europe and in the whole world. One of the reasons why Putin invaded Ukraine was because we were not member state of NATO. If we were member state of NATO, Putin would never risk to invade us. We understand this, and the whole world understands this. That's why it's so important, it's crucially important for us to join NATO as soon as possible. Of course, I understand that now the principal political decision that Ukraine sooner or later will be member state of NATO was already taken. The question only not if, but when Ukraine becomes a full-fledged member of NATO. And we are trying to do everything to bring closer our accession to NATO. Of course, there are some politicians who are saying that we should postpone this issue. We should put it off till the end of war. But the truth is that we don't know when the war will end. The state of war can continue for some time. But my personal position is that we should become a NATO member as soon as possible, like Finland. To me and to many politicians in my country, Finland became a sort of role model. It took less than a year to become a member of NATO. And as soon as we become a member of NATO, it will stop Russian aggression and it will give guarantees of our security. That's why it's a crucial question for our survival.
Yes, indeed. I believe that with the level of armament now and with the level of training and skills of your army, that shouldn't be an obstacle or a challenge. I would go further about and speaking about the international community. It was united in the political support, at least for Ukraine, from the very first day of the large-scale invasion, but rather reluctant to provide weapons and ammunition that was so badly needed for the defense of Ukraine. What is your assessment now of the foreign support, and what more? Especially that, what more is needed to make Ukraine more capable to liberate the territories occupied by Russia?
February 24th of 2022 became a moment of truth for us, because we very clearly saw and we very clearly realized who is our true friend and who is reluctant partner. Let me put it in this way. Those countries who from the very first minutes of the full-scale aggression started to provide us with all necessary weaponry were the United States, the United Kingdom, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, small Estonia, which gave us a lot. So these countries, they proved to be our reliable friends. Unfortunately, some other European big countries which could provide us with the necessary weaponry, they were hesitant, which was very frustrating to me. Some of these countries started to look for arguments not to give us weaponry. They were eager to provide only, for example, 5,000 helmets or hospital. But you cannot defend yourself. You cannot win the war with humanitarian aid or with only having helmets. It's important, but you cannot win war. You need weaponry. You need heavy weaponry, especially when you're fighting against huge empire like Russia, which has second biggest army in the world, which is well equipped. And as I said in the beginning, it was really frustrating, but we survived. We survived, and the more we managed to defeat Russia next to Kiev. We managed to defeat Russia next to Kharkiv. We managed to fight successfully and drive out Russian troops from Kherson. And our other partners started to believe in us and started to provide more weaponry. The situation has changed. But again, the policy was not consistent, because later on, the policy of some countries was, I call it, too little, too late. They were promising to deliver, say, 10 tanks in 3 months, but we needed these tanks immediately, and we needed more weaponry. We didn't need only symbolic kind of military assistance. It was a problem, but later situation gradually has changed, and now we are more satisfied with the provision of weaponry. But of course, we continue to need more weaponry because, you know, almost more than a month, we're being bombarded and shelled by Russia each night. Each night. Russia has enough cruise missiles, it has enough drones, which Russia produces. It also buys it from Iran, from other rogue states. So Russia has lots of weaponry since Soviet times. And we need to respond to this. We need to start a successful counteroffensive. And our needs, we need ammunition, we need heavy weaponry. Now we need air defense, jet aircrafts like F-16. We also need long-range artillery and long-range missiles, because we need, for example, to destroy Russian military logistics, Russian depots with ammunition. And to do that, we need long-range missiles. Because, you know, there is one important thing which should be remembered by each country providing weapons to Ukraine. The truth is that Russia is committing genocide against Ukrainian people. And when you send weaponry to Ukraine, you help to save lives of people in Ukraine. You help to save lives, not only soldiers, but also civilians. Imagine a situation that we don't have right now weaponry for air defense to intercept Russian missiles. Can you imagine what would be the situation in Kiev, in other cities? Now we managed to intercept dozens of Russian missiles and Russian drones. But if we didn't have it, there would be huge casualties in Kiev, in other cities, casualties among civilian people. That's why it's so critically important for us to get weaponry. These weapons help us to survive and to stop genocide.
Well, indeed, it is not for the first time that Russia is committing genocide against the Ukrainian people. We all remember very well that Russia in Soviet times has tried to conduct genocide and actually conducted an act of genocide during the times of Holodomor. And we see now in the 21st century in Europe another attempt to do the same, brutally attacking civilian targets and infrastructure. I would like to, in that context, I would like to ask you about the prospects of the long expected offensive of Ukraine to liberate its territories from Russian occupation. What are the perspectives of these operations? Are you ready? Some of your military leaders say that you're all set and ready to begin as of now, as we speak. Do you have, I know that you're a politician, not a military leader, but do you have some assessments of the strength of the Russian forces that you need to counter now, to reckon with in the offensive to liberate your country?
Well, of course, Russian forces, Russia has accumulated lots of forces. They're also getting ready for our counteroffensive, and they're afraid of counteroffensive. They have dug in, they have created these trenches, and they're prepared. We understand this. But at the same time, I'm very optimistic and I'm hopeful about our counteroffensive. All we need right now, we need more weaponry to have very successful military operation liberating our territory. I don't know, maybe we will need not only one counteroffensive operation, but a number of them to liberate the whole territory of Ukraine, including Crimea. Maybe we will need more such operations. I'm not a military person. But I have feeling, I have intuition that, you know, our army is very motivated because we are fighting for our motherland, for our homes and our families. We are highly motivated. We have very high spirit and morale of our soldiers. As for Russian army, I have this intuition that they are on the brink of collapse because they understand that they are occupiers, that they don't bring freedom, they bring slavery, they bring war crimes, they bring tortures, murders, rapes to Ukraine. And I'm sure that if we have enough push from all sides, from our military, from the world community in terms of sanctions, in terms of more support for Ukraine, Russian army will collapse. And it might change also situation within Russia itself, because we know from history that each time when Russia was defeated, it would bring about changes within Russia itself. It would lead to, for example, revolution, as it was in 1918. So I'm very optimistic and I'm hopeful about our counteroffensive. And at the same time, I understand that we might need more such counteroffensive operations to reach our final goal, which is liberation of the whole occupied territories.
As a politician, would you support an act of reckoning with the Russian military logistics and military installments within the Russian territory? Would you support such a decision to try to disable the Russian assault against Ukraine within the Russian territory?
I will give you an answer not only as a politician, but also as professor of international law. Under international law, the victim of the aggression has the right to self-defense, to individual and collective self-defense, and this right is enshrined in Article 51 of the UN Charter. So as a victim of the aggression, we have right to wage war in the territory of the aggressor. It's our right in terms of self-defense and under international law. I think it's absolutely necessary to target military objects in the territory of Russia. It's our right. It doesn't violate laws and customs of war. It doesn't violate international humanitarian law. The situation is the same as after Hitler, Nazi Germany invaded, for example, Poland, and we understand that the allies had the right to continue their struggle in the territory of the Nazi Germany, in the territory of the aggressor. Without this, there would not be victory in the Second World War. So to me, we have this right, and there is no doubt about this.
Thank you very much. I would like to put one more question about the cooperation between the Ukrainian Parliament and the Macedonian Parliament. We are aware that the President of the Macedonian Parliament, Mr. Jaferi, has visited Ukraine, has visited the sites of the tremendous, horrible war crimes committed in Bucha and other locations in Ukraine. Do you think that North Macedonia has provided enough, or what else would you need to help from as support from our country? And is there any further cooperation after that?
Well, we consider Macedonia to be our friend. We had recently online meeting between committees of foreign affairs of our parliament, the Verkhovna Rada and Macedonian parliament. And, to me, it was very friendly. We had very friendly atmosphere and very warm atmosphere, because I understand that people in Macedonia, they understand what's going on. And we have similar historical experience. That's why we understand each other. And Macedonia as a state, its government, its people are very supportive of Ukraine. We are grateful and we value each gesture of support and help provided to us. I am grateful, and Ukrainians are grateful for your military and technical support. I understand that each country has its own capabilities, its own possibilities in terms of providing help. Some countries have more opportunities, others less. But what we value when you're trying to help us, and this is what's going on between Ukraine and Macedonia, we also see that Macedonia in very decisive way supports us in the international arena, politically, diplomatically. You're voting for the resolution in support of our territorial integrity and sovereignty at the General Assembly of the UN. You are participating in sanctions against the aggressor state. You are taking part in the Crimean platform, which is also important for us because Russian aggression has started from Crimea and it should be finished by liberating Crimea. That's why it's so important. So I see very warm, very supportive attitude of your people to Ukraine. And I can assure you that we value it very highly.
Thank you very much. And indeed, the support comes from various sides from the Macedonian society, which is also coping with the Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation campaigns, and with the hybrid attacks in the recent months and even much longer, I would say, also even before the full-scale invasion against Ukraine. But we somehow managed to cope with these attacks, and we will keep on fighting for democracy and for the European values. I wish you all the best in the coming really difficult times. And I hope to see you again, maybe in the fully liberated Ukraine one day. Thank you.
You're always welcome to come to Kiev. We'll be glad to host you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.